Okay, welcome. We're getting started on our lecture for Design 300. This is Thursday. I'm going to be going over the Revit and a couple of other things for this one. And so we'll get into that shortly. I want to just go over again um, what we've got going on. So we're going to talk a little bit when we talk about Revit about three-part specs, and we'll be going over the submittals that are needed to do to add the detail footings to the stem wall. And I'm going to jump over to my VMware because that's where I have Revit open. I'm going to close up SketchUp, which I'm working on right now, and I'm going to try to find our work that we need to get to right now. So let me get to Google Calendar. My apologies for being a little bit late on here today. And let's go ahead and check out adding these details that are needed and showing how to do it. So
You've been doing fine so far with your.
there's the video on how to do it. And I have to find where I put those drawings. Um, Thought I had them right there. That's just that one. And
You've been.
so, wow, I thought I had the set of resources up for you. Well, here they are. Here's the resource file. Even I get all mixed up sometimes. So what we're going to want to do is I'm going to do this one, my primary one. So we want to get this image into Revit. So I need to save that image. So here we go. I'm going to download the image and I'll save it somewhere reasonable. So here's my folder where I can save things. It's on my U drive. And I'll go back up a little bit, back up a little bit. And I'll go put it in my U drive. You have a U drive also. So here's my fall 2021. And there they are, week 5. And I've got my details to put in. Okay, stem, footwall, and rebar details. So I've saved that and put it in here. So you'll want to go to your um, resource page and get those. Once you've done that, you can open up Revit. And I've got this huge file open that I'm going to close right now. I was working in this file with another intern, so I need to save this thing, and it takes a while. It's such a huge file. My apologies for taking a while here. And now I'm going to go open I'm going to open the Revit file that I pulled down also. So in my week 5, there is a Foundation Details Revit week 5. So you've downloaded that one also. Okay, so download your images, download your file. And I'm going to put that image on here along with a few other things. Now, when we work with something that's not really part of the model, remember this model looks like this. Let's see if it'll come up. Might not. There it is. That's actually the model, but now I want to tell how to do something in this model. And we call that a detail view or a drafting view. So in Revit, you go make a new view. So there's a view tab, and it's called the drafting view. So I'm going to make a drafting view. Click. And I'm going to call this one footing and stem wall detail. And I have to set a scale, so I'm just going to call it a custom scale with a scale factor of 1. That way, whatever size my image is, it'll work that way on my piece of paper. I'm going to make a drafting view, and it's just a blank page. And where it is located, it's just made a new little set, drafting views, and it's bold, so that's the one I'm in. And it gives me a view scale and all that kind of stuff. And when I put a drawing in here, it'll tell me how big it is. So that's what I need to do next. I need to insert an image. I'm going to just bring an image in. And the one I thought I'd do is my footing and stem wall detail. And there it is, and it's in there. Now, in my instructions, I suggest that you make this 7 inches across, because then it will fit on my piece of paper. So it's telling me, it's highlighted here, so it's telling me that right now it's a little bit bigger than that. I'll type 7 and inches. It's the quotation marks for inches. And then it looks really tiny, so I need to zoom in on it. I'm using my mouse wheel. There we go. It's ready to go. I can put it in. But then you'll notice that I ask for some other information to be put on there about these dimensions. Okay, so when I come over here, at least maybe I asked for it. Come back over into here and look at my Google Drive over here. That's what it should look like when it's completed. I need to write stem wall thickness equals, P equals, W equals, T equals, and calcs by. Because this is general, and for this particular building, somebody's going to calculate what those numbers are, and they're going to put them here. Okay, so let's come back over there. And so now I'm back to my annotations, which you've done already. Text. 3/30 seconds. Or an 1/8. I'll use an 1/8 inch text. Click. And I'm just going to say I'm going to put it right there. And now watch. Sorry, I want to do one other thing first. I want my text to be right justified. So I'm going to click that right now. Now I'll put my text, and that's going to put it all over at the end. So, stem wall thickness equals, enter. P equals, enter. W equals, enter. T equals, enter, and calcs by with a little space. And that now it's actually ready to go. So we're going to talk about this in a little while, but that's what you do. Now I've got this ready to go onto my sheet, and I see that maybe I want to move that over a little bit. So if I click on it, I can even make this a little bit smaller. So it doesn't, and now I can kind of move it so it looks a little bit better. And I know those equals are going to have something written in them eventually. Now I've got it. So that's all there is to this one. It's actually pretty quick and easy. So I'm going to come down now to my piece of paper, and I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to grab, I just clicked on my footing and stem wall detail. By holding my left button down, I bring it over and I let go. And now once I let go, it lets me put it about where I want it. And you can see why I made it 7 inches wide. It's going to fit on my piece of paper really well. And now I'll click. And I'll click out. I've got it. You guys know how to put your name on it by now. So I've got that first one. And this is actually a big part of how Revit works and entry level drafting and drawing. Somebody has to do these calculations. It would probably be the entry level drafter because you're going to look them up in a manual. Or your drafting office is going to have an Excel spreadsheet for you to type stuff into. So there's going to be some standards for you to look at, and you'll go look them up. But this is a very quick way. I don't have to have this exactly the right size and everything. Whoever's going to go pour the concrete will just read this and they'll dig the hole the right size and as we go. So this keeps us from having to make a perfectly sized drawing for every single instance that might be out there. Okay. So my next one to do, if I can find it, is here's my rebar. See that one. Completed. Okay, and this one should be the same, and it should say rebar per master format spec 032000, and you don't know what that means yet. That's okay. So now I want to put that other one in, and I want to write rebar per master format spec. Let me come over. I need a new drafting view. Where were those again? Under view, drafting view. And this is going to be rebar for footing and stem wall. And here I am. I'm on it. So again, I'll insert my image, and it's the rebar detail. Click. And again, I'll come and change it to 7 inches. And I know 7 inches because I know what kind of piece of paper it's going to go on, and I have an idea. That was my scroll wheel that did that. I've hit escape a few times. And I'll annotate. I'll make sure I'm right justified. I'm at 1/8 tall. So I can, this one maybe I'll do middle justified. Rebar per master format spec 03 space 20 space 00. So somebody will go look up that specification in order to purchase and place this rebar properly. And now here we go again. I'm going to go back to my piece of paper, hold down on the drafting view with my left button, pull it into place. When I'm close, I let go of the button, and then I've let go, but I'm still on it. So then, see how it kind of gives me some little lines down there to snap around to? That's just nice practice to do. There we go. Save. When you've done something good, always save as a project. And I've saved it already as complete. So I'm going to save this one as my lecture demo. That's the one I did in my lecture demo. I pretty well like it. It's pretty good. So now, of course, I can take my snip. And I've got a very, very nice snip. File. Save as, and this will go in again. details. That way I'll know which one it is. So what have we done so far? We've made a bunch of types of views, and this is a new type of view called a detail. And details are used a lot in architecture. So instead of having to draw this everywhere and make sure that every little part of it in your model is exactly this way, we can just make a generic model and say, look at the detail for the actual dimensions and sizes and how to put it together. And these two go together, right? It's going to show that you've got a thick pour at the bottom, a thinner pour at the top. Usually we would add something across here, but you've already done that. Last week, you've already showed that there's some minimum distance here. This shows where you're placing your rebar. So with this one page, a foundation, a concrete contractor could do this. Now, there are a few things that are not on here. There's still more to add to the detail. I'm giving you the basics of how to do it and what's going on. So the other things that you might do would be to call out the spacings. Although this is on this one. The spacings are in here. Normally those might be at also down here in something you would write down. It's got other standards to look at. Remember that R403 1.4.1? That's part of that standard that we were looking at. So this goes with a specification. And then I've got this cryptic thing that says spec 032000. So let's start talking about what specs do. This tells you to go look somewhere else for even more information. So if you recall that we had this RCAT thing, and that we could find specifications. These are CSI building product material divisions, and each division in concrete, I can find products, specifications, testing, certifications. I can find all of these things about each of these. So under concrete, I might be able to find specifications. So if I click on my specifications thing and I look at O3 concrete, man, I can find a lot of cool stuff. And I saw one, it said to go O320. Well, they don't have O320 listed in here. So I might have to go somewhere else to find it. They don't have product already set up for O320. Right, so let's look at O320. They do have some O321. We back up one. Okay, so under O3, I might actually need something else, but there are O320s out there. Here's an O320, which is the same thing as 00. O321, O321. So here's an O32000. It says go look at that so you know what you're doing. Okay, and what is this about? Concrete reinforcement. Let's see what this said to do. Rebar, which is concrete reinforcement per master format, O32000. Now that's just an example. You might call out some other ones too. But this is the requirements for providing reinforcement. Steel bars, wire and welded, wire fabric as shown. Okay, and there's some related specifications. Cast in place concrete, that's probably what we've got. We've probably got formwork. So in calling this one out, we're telling somebody to also do these. Okay, and that there's, oh man, look at all this stuff. There's codes and standards, all sorts of other cool stuff. going on. Okay. So section 1 of a 3-part spec is general. It just sort of says, hey, what's this kind of about? What are some other things that might apply? There's usually a whole bunch of codes that are part of this. In other words, you're supposed to detail it a certain way. There's code requirements. There's ASTM codes and testing and all sorts of stuff. There's usually something about submittals. In other words, if you're going to use some reinforcement, the person who's giving you that, who's selling it to you, has to provide some stuff to the architect and the contractor. And in this case, they're giving us product data and information. Give us any shop drawings that you've got. Location of where the bars are going to go and the dimensions. Give us samples, maybe. Maybe if it's epoxy coated, they want to be able to see it so they can test it and look at it and see. You better make sure that you're giving them the right stuff. So these are all things that the architect is going to require. And now this detail, instead of having to put all of this in your drawing, it's all, you just reference this. This is the contractor, whoever's selling you this stuff, or the vendor, has to give you all of this stuff. And then it says how to even deliver and store it. So part 1 of a 3-part spec is always about this kind of stuff. And so it's very organized, so somebody can really get in and figure out what they're supposed to do to meet the needs of the design. And with one simple drawing, with one simple view, you've just given them 5 pages worth of stuff to look at and to make sure that they're doing other stuff too. Okay? And this is all to ensure safety, safety, and safety. Safety of the design, safety for the contractors, and safety for whoever is going to live there. All design work, regulations, standards, building codes, design details are all to support safety, safety, safety. And then after those are supported, we start looking at things like cost, how nice it looks, how fast we can build it, things like that. Number 1 is safety, 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 and that is the purpose for all of these specifications, to ensure it's going to work. And you can just look at that Surfside disaster to figure out why. And they didn't follow all the rules, and no one was checking, apparently, as I've been looking at it. So now, once that's done, part 1, there's part 2 that tells you what the actual product is. What's the actual product? Well, this is going to list acceptable manufacturers. Okay? And that's why companies actually create their own specs that have their name on it. Because wouldn't it be nice to have just your name on this, where only a certain group can put it in. Okay? So there's usually acceptable manufacturers. Sometimes this says American only. Sometimes it has certain names of companies. But we usually like to say equivalent products may be submitted. But when somebody's got their name on it, the contractor knows, oh, it's so simple, so easy. I can just go buy that and I will be good. Okay? And then they're talking about connections. Okay. Caldwell Rebar, Bar Splice Products, Dalbar Spicers by Richmond Screw and Anchor Company. So what they're saying is, if you're doing mechanical connections, they want you to do them using these people's products. Now, there are some times, often, when that is part of the design. They know that these types of connections can handle certain loads, they last a certain amount of time, they're guaranteed to do this and that. And so it's very appropriate to do this. There are times when these guys have just paid a bunch of money and they're just trying to get what's called the sole source spec so that they don't have to work hard at sales. That's not appropriate. Okay, and that's why you should always have other manufacturers are here. But oftentimes, this truly, truly is part of the design, and you want that. So the engineer will specify whose products to use. New billet steel bars. Okay, you can't use recycled or scrapped. And meeting certain requirements. So that's really clear. And that's probably to meet a certain amount of safety and assurance that those bars are going to have the correct strength and durability and workability in the design. So under products, they'll usually talk about who can do it, what actual materials can be used, what types of coatings can be used, what types of supports and accessories can be used, things like that. So this is all about all the cool products and materials that might go along with using this product. If there's fabrication involved, that's considered part of the product specification, and that has to be done too. So that's all part of part 2. I'm going to go back up here. Part 2 has all that kind of stuff. The product. What are you getting? Specifying exactly what that is. And then the third part is called execution, or how do you do it? What are the steps that are required? What processes, what things do you need to do to ensure that this product is getting used correctly, to ensure that it follows all the safety guidelines? So there's usually things about installation. There's usually stuff about testing, maybe storage and handling, maybe some other things too. Maybe there are certain, like here's cleaning, placement, positioning, extension. So these are all about how do you use this product to ensure that it's going to meet the requirements and perform as you say. So this is a real typical spec, and I just want you to review something and kind of go over it. But this is the spec that is being called out. Okay, now you might have a spec that's made by a certain company that's 03200 or 2000 that has a little bit different stuff than this, but you'll find it in the book, Concrete Reinforcement, under 03200. Okay? And then there might be other specifications relating to these drawings also. Sometimes those are in the general notes. The goal of this is for you to see how detailed drawings are not truly specific to the design, but lead you to items that are specific. Okay? That the calculations for this design are based on. So this is a key part of material resources. We call those master format specs, or CSI 3-part specs, or material specifications. Okay? Material specifications are not quite as broad as master format specs, because material specifications usually include just part 2 of a 3-part spec. They truly just tell you the material. They don't tell you about the certifications and the testing and the associated standards that have to be met with that material, and so on and so forth. And they don't tell you about the execution of it. So a 3-part spec is generally asked for. And there are other 3-part spec besides master format. There's Omni spec, there's CSI 3-part, and then there's a bunch that are just made up on their own by certain companies because it fits how they work. And each job may require different ones. There are also government 3-part specs that are often used so that all the specs can be housed in one repository very easily. Like Caltrans has their own spec book, and the California Office of Architecture has their own spec book that you can refer to. Revit uses something called an Omni spec, which is very similar to this. The numbers match up, but their format and how they're called out are a little bit different. So that's a little bit of information about this drawing that you're required to do. Now, the last part is I want you to know that you are not normally allowed to just put a picture in and use it. This is copyrighted material. It's owned by somebody. Somebody did a lot of work, and they usually expect to be paid for it. Now, if you have paid a license or a subscription, and that license or subscription allows you to reuse images, quotes, portions from the standard or wherever you got it, then that's fine. You get to just put it in here and use it. And usually there's a licensing page somewhere that shows that you owned that license. I don't own the license for this. I went online and got it. And so we operate at ARC under educational fair use license. If we take a very, very, very small portion of a large use and we use it and repurpose it as a small part of a larger educational project, the copyright laws allow us to do that. So I am allowing you to do that in this case. Normally, what you would do is you would put it in here and you would create your own details over the top of it. And you would basically redraw it. Right like that. And you would then draw your next one on there too. And then you would do all this work and get this done, and you would do all of your dimensioning and all of the little detail work, and you would get rid of that. That's how you would normally do it in industry. But we're not worrying about that. We're using our educational fair use license. But I want you to be very clear that it's just not acceptable to go cutting and pasting stuff that you've pulled off the web unless you have the license to do so. The one place that I see that we've already talked about a lot is where people will just take a snip off of Google Maps or Google Earth and throw it into their project, and away they go. So unless you've got license to do so, you do not get to do that. You can take the snip and you can create your own version of it. Okay? So there we go. Let's see what else we've got. I don't think I have any questions on that right now. Let me see what else I needed to go over. I'm just going to go through here and make sure that we've checked everything. I've done the Revit. This will go into the playlist. We've looked at the RCAT system and 3-part specs. And your goal is to go into those and actually, talk a little bit about, these detailed drawings and how they work and how those all go. Welcome in. Good to have you aboard with us. I'm just finishing up lecture, but I got a little bit more to go, and I'll take questions in a few minutes from you. So I think I've hit everything that you need. Let me give you an example of what you would want here. Footing, what is it? Post and pier, what is it? I'd like images. Now, ideally, if you were to do a footing, you might put information about how footings are designed, what they're used for, what the pouring process is, whether they need rebar, what hooks up to them, how they're formed. So rather than just showing one picture of a footing, I'd like you to really think this through and go, yeah, I know what a footing is. I know how they work. I know what they're for. I know how they're built. I know a little bit about curing. I know what an anchor bolt is. I know a little bit about, the process to make sure that I've got the right concrete. So things like that. And then what's the difference between a post and pier and a footing? And then here's a picture of a post and pier. It's used similarly, but it's got a different type of connection, blah, blah, blah. And your images should tell that story with some very brief sets of annotations. Okay, so I'm looking that you've spent some time to research and understand these things. Okay, I know that you're going to put this lecture on at double speed, so you'll have spent half an hour on the lecture, and then so you're expected to spend an hour to an hour and a half more doing the independent review of the materials that we've given you. So the same thing when you look at what is a stem wall. What's a stem wall for? What does it do? How does it act? Maybe you've looked up vapor barriers. What are things that stem walls are made out of? We got concrete masonry unit. How do we get something through the middle of it? Is rebar necessary? So these are all things that we've kind of looked at. And so again, you should have more than just the one link that I've given you. You should follow those links, follow more links, maybe look at some of these and talk about reinforcing steel and ask some questions about, who's doing this and what's it for? What are these standards? What is an A9096? Whose standards is that? Where are those standards from? What is an ASTM? What is an AASHTO? You might look some of those up. What is hot roll steel? What are deformed bars? What is epoxy coating? Okay, so there's a good question. How do I see feedback from the ones that have been done? Great question. Let me go into that one right now. And I will go into, I'll probably have to go into just somebody's and see it. So let me look at a week 3 and just look, and I'll show you what they look like from my side. So this one got a 10 out of 10. So the first feedback is that you'll see a green thing along here, and you get into this through looking at your grades. Let me start also. Let me go into a student view here. See if I can do that. So if you go to the grade book, first off, you'll see all of these. And then you'll see feedback right here. This is what you entered and things. And if there's more feedback, you'll see other details right in here in the comments. So I gave you comments, you'll see them there. And then you can go to your submittal and view feedback. But you'll also, you should see that's what you submit. You should see the feedback that I've given you. Let's see what it looks like when I do that. There it is right there. And so here you'll see where I've done scribbling on it. Okay, so you'll be able to see all those things where I've actually put comments on it right there. Okay, so let's go through that process again. I'm going to go back to the home. And I probably need to do a little video on this. That would be a great thing. Thank you for asking that question. So there's the grades. Click. Go to your grades where you've done something. And of course, I've got this one sitting here. And of course, everything's missing because this is my test student. But I did do one. So you can see the score that I've given. You can see the comments that have been put into the comment box. And you can go over here to see the actual submittal. You can download your submittal, or you can go, and that just gives you a copy of what you did. Then you can go to the feedback. And I'm going to close this up so it's a little bit easier to see. Make it a little bit bigger. And this will be, you'll be able to see where I've done any markups on it. You'll be able to see markups. And I'm using my wheel to scroll right now. Okay, so normally I'll have done markups and you'll see green if it was 2 points. You'll see a comment and a little red line if there was another point. So did that help out? Did that answer the question clearly enough? Very good question. Thanks for asking that one. This would be a great one for me to make a video of and post. Okay. Cool. Well, there we go. Thank you for asking that one. So let's go back and look. I think I've hit all of the items that we need to look at. And you can get those submittals in. Remember, if you do a late submittal, let me know. Often, if you let me know why, I can just go in and catch it up. Remember that your late submittals go to my dashboard back. Late submittals go right here. And you'll never see a grade in here, but you can just post a late submittal here. Give me a comment, let me know. And sometimes I get them done. Usually I kind of like wait till the end of the semester. But if I don't have too many of them sitting in a backlog, sometimes I'll get them done. If you have a late submittal, put it in there. Then the submittal grade will go back into this one. If I had done a late one, you'll see the grade updated where it belongs here, not in the late one. Okay, there we go. If there are no more questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.